Yeah, today I continue with another major event of the life of the Buddha, the story of the Buddha entering the city of Rājagaha with 1,000 awakened monk disciples. So that's the first great public appearance of the Buddha as teacher. To start, it can be interesting to briefly consider how does the Buddha establish his teaching in the world. So if you look at the first year after the Buddha's awakening, then you can see a few patterns. The first thing that you can see is the Buddha doesn't try to just teach some random people here and there, but he uses his psychic powers and the 10 powers of a Tathagata to see where the people are who are most easy to teach and who realize the teaching most quickly. And then he's deliberately seeking out exactly these people so that he quickly establishes a large group of awakened disciples who can then in turn teach even more people. And the second thing that you can observe is that the Buddha first almost exclusively teaches monks, and only when he has established a large monastic community of more than 1,000 awakened disciples, he starts to teach large groups of lay people. It's also understandable if you think about it. The average person, if you see some teacher coming who has no disciples, just on his own, whatever, coming there, most people are not so impressed by that. But if you see someone with 1,000 disciples, it naturally makes a different impression. I mean, obviously a person with, let's say, high spiritual qualities will not judge according to that, but most people will be more impressed by a spiritual teacher when he has a large following. And so I think that's one of the reasons why the Buddha more or less first wants to establish a large monastic community of awakened disciples, and then afterwards basically then he starts to teach large crowds of lay people as well. After the Buddha's awakening, after he decides to teach, then he's surveying the world to find out where the people are who will realize the Dhamma most quickly. And so he decides to teach first a group of 5 monks in the deer park near Varanasi. So he's first just focusing on teaching these 5 monks, this little group, until they have realized awakening and become arahants. And then, once he has accomplished that, Hyasa and his friends come and decide to become monks as well. And the Buddha continues to teach them while he's staying in this deer park in Varanasi, and before the end of the first rain season, then the first 60 monks have realized awakening. And after the end of the rain season, the Buddha is sending out his first 60 awakened disciples in all directions so that many people as possible get a chance to hear his teaching and realize awakening. And the Buddha himself goes to Uruvela to seek out the next large group of people who can realize awakening very quickly. The 3 Kassapa brothers and their 1,000 disciples of fire-worshipping ascetics. So after they become his disciples of the Buddha, that the Buddha is teaching them the fire sermon, and the 1,000 fire-worshipping ascetics realize awakening and become arahants. And maybe you notice something. So far the Buddha didn't create much publicity. So it's just first he's staying quietly in this deer park near Varanasi, teaching these 60 monks, and then also the fire-worshipping ascetics. They were living in some ashrams outside of towns. So yeah, not just focusing on teaching these to get them realize awakening as quickly as possible. Yeah, but now the Buddha has already gathered more than 1,000 awakened monk disciples, a community that is large enough to make his first great public appearance. And so now the Buddha starts his next big move. And yeah, so he's leading his new army of 1,000 awakened monks towards the largest city of the most powerful kingdom in India, to Rājagaha, the capital of the kingdom of Magadha. And the walk of the Buddha and the 1,000 arahants and the entering into the city of Rājagaha, it's the dawn of a new era. The dawn of a new era that will change India and the world for millennia. It's the beginning of the era when the teaching of the perfectly awakened one exists in the world. And the walk of the Buddha and the 1,000 monks towards Rājagaha is obviously something very noticeable by people. And so messengers inform the king of Magadha. His name is Senior Bimbisara. So the messengers tell him, "Your Majesty, the recluse Gotama, who went forth into homelessness from the family of the Sakyans, is walking towards Rājagaha with 1,000 monks. And they say that he's a perfectly awakened one, the knower of the cosmos and the unsurpassable teacher." And the king is amazed when he hears that, because the young king, who is just about maybe 35 years old, he has an aspiration since he was a young prince. He has this aspiration, "May a perfectly awakened one arise in my kingdom." So the great aspiration of his life is to meet this awakened teacher, to hear his teaching and to understand it. And now he receives the message that this great awakened teacher has finally arisen in the world, and that he's walking towards his capital with 1,000 disciples. After the Buddha and the monks have walked from Gaya to Rājagaha, they are gathering at a shrine outside the city. It's called the Supatitita shrine at Lativana. And King Bimbisara hears that the Buddha has reached Rājagaha, and also all the people living in the city hear about it. The king himself and most people living in the city, several 10,000 people, go out to meet the Buddha and the monks. And if you imagine meeting a perfectly awakened one, leading a group of 1,000 liberated arahants, it's obviously a very impressive and awe-inspiring sight to see that, to meet so many awakened beings. And so under the impression of the peace and silence of the Buddha and the 1,000 arahants, the king bows to the Buddha and sits down, and the people of Rājagaha as well, and so expecting to hear the teaching from him. However, at that time the Buddha was just a 35-year-old young recluse who was unknown, while Uruvela Kassapa was the former leader of this 1,000 fire-worshipping ascetics. He is now a Buddhist monk and arahant, and he was already 70 or 80 years old, and he was more or less well known in the whole country. The people see the Buddha and Uruvela Kassapa standing in front of the assembly of the 1,000 monks, and so they're wondering, has the old Uruvela Kassapa really become the disciple of this young recluse who is just 35 years old, the Buddha, or is it the other way around? Has the Buddha become the disciple of Uruvela Kassapa? I think also in Indian culture it's very rare that, let's say, an 80-year-old spiritual teacher will become the disciple of a young 35-year-old other teacher. It just would be considered very strange in Indian culture, I think. So one can understand that they are wondering who is the disciple of whom. And the Buddha, who knows the mind of the people, is addressing Uruvela Kassapa in verses. They have a short exchange in verse to clarify that, and also to give the people a short preview of the teaching that they are going to hear. Maybe as addition, the religion of most people at that time was that they would make offerings, worshipping, praying to deities, to divine beings, and I think it was most common form of religion, and so the verses are also about that, one can also say. So the Buddha is addressing Uruvela Kassapa in verses. What have you seen, who lived at Uruvela, as teacher of emaciated ascetics, that you have abandoned the fire? I ask you for the reason, Kassapa, why you abandoned your fire worship. Forms, sound and flavors, and sensuality, that is what sacrifices promise. I've seen this is defilement for acquisitions. This is why I don't delight in offerings and fire worship. But if your mind doesn't delight in forms, sound and flavors, Kassapa, then in this cosmos with its devas and humans, where does your mind delight? Tell me, Kassapa. The state of peace has been seen, without acquisitions, owning nothing, unattached to sensuality and becoming. Doesn't become otherwise and doesn't lead to anything else. Therefore I don't delight in offerings and fire worship. So I think I just recite the verses briefly, because it's also nicer to hear it's just very short anyway, and the translation is always unpoetic, so it's not so nice. Kim eva disva Uruvela vasi, pahasi angin kisako vadano, puchhamitang Kassapa etam atang, katang pahinang tava angi hutang. Rupi su sandi su atura secha, kam itiocha vivadanti yanya, etang malanti upadi sunyatva, tasma nayitte nahote aranching. Etta chate mano naramitta Kassapa, rupi su sandi su atura seso, atako charahiteva manussaloke, manorato Kassapa bruhimetang. Disva padang santaman upadikang, akinchanang kama pave asatang, ananyata paving ananyaneyang, tasmana yitte nahote aranching. In a way, it's also obviously a declaration of Uruvela Kassapa's Dhamma realization, so expressing what he delights in now, in the sense of the deathless, the liberation of that he has realized as Arahant. So after Uruvela Kassapa's resounding declaration of his Dhamma realization, then Uruvela Kassapa bows to the feet of the Buddha and says, "The Blessed One is my teacher, and I'm his disciple. The Blessed One is my teacher, and I'm his disciple." And then the people know that Uruvela Kassapa has become the disciple of the Buddha. Then the Buddha gives the king and the people of Rājagaha a graduated teaching about generosity, virtue, the results in terms of good rebirth of good actions. So teaching on, say, punya, on the results of good actions in this life and future lives, and the disadvantages and defiling nature of sensuality and the benefits of renunciation. And when the Buddha knows that their hearts are ready, receptive, free from hindrances, elated and confident, he explains to them the teaching special to the Buddhas: suffering, the origin of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering, the Noble Eightfold Path. And just like a clean cloth with all marks removed would take dye evenly, so too the people of Rājagaha, headed by the king, while they're sitting there, then the spotless, stainless vision of the Dhamma arises in them. Whatever is subject to origination, or that is subject to cessation. King Bimbisara and the people of Rājagaha realized the first stage of awakening, streamenty. This is the largest crowd of people who realizes the Dhamma during the 45 years when the Buddha is teaching. So it's a very special event, obviously. And according to the story in the Vinaya, only 1/12 of the people don't realize streamenty and only take refuge in the Triple Gem. So the vast majority all realizes streamenty on this occasion. And King Bimbisara, who has seen the Dhamma and attained the Dhamma, crossed over beyond doubt, then he says to the Buddha, "Venerable Sir, when I was a young prince, I had 5 aspirations. May I become king? That was my first aspiration, and now it has been fulfilled. May an arahant, a perfectly awakened one, arise in my kingdom. This was my second aspiration, and now it has been fulfilled. May I pay homage to that blessed one. That was my third aspiration, and now it has been fulfilled. May the blessed one teach me the Dhamma. That was my fourth aspiration, and now it has been fulfilled. And may I understand the teaching of the blessed one. That was my fifth aspiration, and now it has been fulfilled. When I was a young prince, I had these 5 aspirations, and now all my aspirations have been fulfilled." So King Bimbisara was also a special person. It seems he has from some previous life, he had some aspiration to become a king when the Buddha arises in the world. It's the only time something like this occurs in the whole Sutta and Vinaya Pitaka, I think. So, basically from previous life, already having this aspiration to become a king and then encountering a perfectly awakened one, a Buddha. And then understanding his teaching and basically supporting him as king. So King Bimbisara is pleased, naturally, now that he realized the Dhamma and about the teaching of the Buddha. And he says, "Magnificent Master Gotama. Master Gotama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as if he was turning upright what has been overthrown, revealing what has been hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go for refuge to Master Gotama, to the Dhamma and to the Sangha. May Master Gotama remember me as lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life. And may the Blessed One accept my meal invitation tomorrow, together with the community of monks." And so the Buddha accepts the invitation of the king, and the people return to the city. And the next morning at dawn, the Buddha and the monks are assembling at the Supatitita shrine. And as the golden sun is rising over the hills of Rājagaha, the Buddha enters the city together with the 1,000 awakened Arhat monks. And while they walk into the city, a young, bright-looking Brahmin starts to walk in front of them and is singing these verses. The tamed ones together with the tamed, the liberated one together with the liberated. Radiant like gold, the blessed one enters Rājagaha. The released one together with those who are released. The liberated one together with the liberated. Radiant like gold, the blessed one enters Rājagaha. The one who has crossed over together with those who have crossed over. The liberated one together with the liberated. Radiant like gold, the blessed one enters Rājagaha. The peaceful one together with the peaceful ones. The liberated one together with the liberated. Radiant like gold, the blessed one enters Rājagaha. He has 10 dwellings, 10 powers, is the knower of 10 qualities, endowed with 10. Surrounded by 10 times 100, the blessed one enters Rājagaha. Again, the translation is not poetic, so I just recites the verses because they express the joyfulness better than the translation. Tanto tantehi sapurana chatilehi vippamutto vippamuttehi sinki nikkasovanno rajagahang pavisi bhagava mutto muttehi sapurana chatilehi vippamutto vippamuttehi sinki nikkasovanno rajagahang pavisi bhagava Tinno tinnehi sahapurana chatilehi vippamutto vippamuttehi sinki nikkasovanno rajagahang pavisi bhagava Santo santehi sahapurana chatilehi vippamutto vippamuttehi sinki nikkasovanno rajagahang pavisi bhagava Dasavaso, dasabalo, dasadhamma vidu, dasapichopeto, so dasasata parivaro, rajagahang pavisi bhagava. Yeah, some nice verses for the occasion. And the young, bright-looking Brahmin is Sakka, the king of the Tavatimsa Devas, who is coming for the occasion to announce the arrival of the Buddha in Rājagaha. So he specially comes and recites these verses, was expressing his inspiration. And so then the Buddha and the monks go to the palace of the king for the meal offering. And after the Buddha has finished the meal and washed his bowl and hands, the king is sitting there and is thinking, where could the Buddha and the monks stay? In a place that would be neither too far, nor too close from the city, accessible, where interested people could come out, not crowded by day and with few noises at night, with an atmosphere of seclusion, away from humans and appropriate for seclusion. And so he's thinking about what would be a good place for the Buddha to stay. And then it occurs to him, I have this bamboo forest park that is just like that. And what if I would offer this bamboo forest park to the community of monks headed by the Buddha? And the king offers his park, which becomes the first Buddhist monastery in history, the bamboo grove near Rājagaha, Velovana. And then the Buddha and the monks are living first in this bamboo grove and also in the wilderness around Rājagaha. I think Rājagaha is surrounded by 7 hills, if I remember correctly. And so they have these hills with like caves and it's nice nature. So it's there is various places where one can just stay away from the city. Then after the Buddha arrived, or at that time, there was also a religious teacher called Sanjaya Putta living near Rājagaha, who had a relatively large following of 250 disciples. And also 2 friends lived the holy life under Sanjaya as teacher. And the name of these 2 friends were Venerable Sāriputta and Venerable Moggalāna. The lay names Upatissa and Kolita. And the 2 friends, they had made a promise to each other. Whoever attains the deathless first will tell the other friend. So they had the inspiration to search for something like the ultimate liberation, and then promising each other, if I find it, then I will tell you, and the other way around. So one morning, maybe a few weeks after the Buddha has arrived at Rājagaha, Venerable Sāriputta sees Venerable Assaji, one of the Buddhist monks, walking through Rājagaha on arms round. Venerable Assaji is one of the first 5 monks who became arahants in the deer park at Varanasi after listening to the Anatalakkhana Sutta. And Venerable Assaji looks very peaceful and dignified when he's walking on arms round. And Venerable Sāriputta, who sees him, thinks, surely this monk must be one of those in the world who are arahants or on the path to arahantship. I will ask him, who is your teacher? In whose teaching do you delight? But then, because Venerable Assaji is just walking on arms round, he doesn't want to disturb him. He thinks it's the wrong time, so he's just following him quietly. And then after the arms round is finished, he asks Venerable Assaji. And so he explains that the Buddha is his teacher, and Venerable Sāriputta immediately asks him what the Buddha is teaching. Venerable Assaji answers first, I'm new, just recently gone forth in this teaching and monastic discipline. I can teach you the Dhamma in detail, but I can tell you the meaning in brief. So Venerable Sāriputta says, may it be much or little, friend. I just need to know the meaning. What's the use of talking about many details? Venerable Assaji is teaching Venerable Sāriputta just one short 4-line verse. And the translation is of those things that have arisen from a cause, the Tathagata, the Buddha has declared the cause, and also the cessation of them. This is the teaching of the great recluse. So, you can say a short explanation of the origin of dukkha and the cessation of dukkha, of samudaya and nirodha. In a sense, the Buddha has understood how dependently arisen phenomena arise by causes. He has completely comprehended causality and dependently arisen phenomena. And he has also realized cessation, nibbana, what is beyond dependently arisen phenomena, beyond causality, beyond of arising and passing away. And this is what he is teaching. So that would be a short explanation of this verse. The part is Ye Dhamma Hetu Pabhava te sang hetung tathagato aha, te sanchayo nirodo, evang vadi Mahā samano. And Venerable Sāriputta realizes streamenty by just hearing this short 4-line verse. And then he goes to his friend Venerable Moggalāna, and he sees his friend coming, and he immediately notices some profound changes taking place in his friend. And so he asks him, "Friend, your faculties are clear and your complexion is peaceful and bright. Could it be that you have realized the deathless?" And Venerable Sāriputta says, "Yes, friend, I have attained the deathless." Venerable Moggalāna asks him, "But how did you realize that?" And Venerable Sāriputta tells Venerable Moggalāna how he met Venerable Assaji and the short 4-line verse that he told him. And just like Venerable Sāriputta, his friend Venerable Moggalāna also realizes streamenty, but just hearing this short 4-line verse. And so Venerable Moggalāna says, "Let's go to the Blessed One, friend. The Blessed One, the Buddha, is now a teacher." But Venerable Sāriputta says, "There were these 250 disciples of Sanjaya who are living independence on us. Let's inform them, and they can decide what they want to do now." And when the 250 disciples of Sanjaya hear that Venerable Sāriputta and Venerable Moggalāna become disciples of the Buddha, they decide to follow them and become monks as well. And then they go to the former teacher, Sanjaya, and tell him that the Buddha is now their teacher. But Sanjaya says, "Enough, friends, don't go. Let all 3 of us look after this group." So he tries to convince them to stay by offering them to be teacher of the group of 250 disciples. But Venerable Sāriputta and Venerable Moggalāna, of course, not interested in that, and they're leaving. And Sanjaya is very unhappy and upset, but he's too attached to his position of being a teacher to follow them, so he just stays there on his own and dejected. Yeah. Venerable Sāriputta and Venerable Moggalāna go to meet the Buddha in the bamboo grove. And the Buddha sees them coming from afar, and he already knows who they are. And he tells the monks, "Monks, the 2 friends, Upatissa and Kolita, are coming. They will be my pair of chief disciples, an excellent pair." And the 2 get ordained by the Buddha himself, and then the 2 friends separate and practice on their own. And both of them become arahants in very short time. Venerable Sāriputta in only 2 weeks, and Venerable Moggalāna in just 1 week. Yeah, so again, in this case, this was of the people with the greatest spiritual faculties on the entire planet, except the Buddha himself. These were the 2 chief disciples of the Buddha. So for them, it was just like this is why they realized the Dhamma with just hearing 1 4-line verse, and then realized the Dhamma very quickly. The Buddha says that every Buddha has a pair of chief disciples who are the most outstanding monks among all the 1,000 awakened arahants. And for our Buddha, the pair of chief disciples were Venerable Sāriputta, also called the Dhamma General, Dhamma Senapati, the disciple foremost in wisdom, and Venerable Moggalāna, the disciple foremost in psychic powers. For the nuns, in a similar way, the 2 chief disciples were Sister Khema, foremost in wisdom, and Sister Upalavanna, foremost in psychic powers. And so these two greatest of all awakened disciples, they helped the Buddha in various ways during the 45 years when he was teaching. They helped the Buddha to teach the Dhamma, to explain it in detail, helped him to make it available to as many people as possible. They were also role models for the monks. The Buddha recommends the monks to emulate them, and he says that the monks should become like them. And they were also helping the Buddha to train new monks and helped him to look after the Sangha. In the weeks and months after the arrival of the Buddha in Rājagaha, then also many people of various families want to become monks. And you remember this large crowd of several 10,000 people who became stream enterers, so probably quite a few of those also wanted to become monks later. And so people even start to criticize and complain about the Buddha. They say, the recluse Gotama is taking away people's sons. The recluse Gotama is turning women into widows. And the recluse Gotama is destroying family lineages. Now the 1,000 fire-worshipping ascetics have become disciples of him. And also these 250 disciples of Sanjaya. And many, many well-known sons of Magadha families decided to live the holy life under him. So the people are complaining, and then when they see the monks, then they taunt them with some verse. So they say this short verse, fallen verse. The great recluse has come to the hill forest. The great recluse has come to the hill fortress of Magadha, and led away Sanjaya's disciples. Whom will he lead away next? Who is the next one who is sort of snatched away by the Buddha? There's all these people of ordaining, and then this other also joined him. So the monk reports to the Buddha that people are criticizing, complaining about the Buddha. And he says, this talk of the people will not last long. It will disappear after 7 days. And if people criticize you with this verse, then you can counter them with this verse that I teach you. And so the great heroes, the perfect ones, are led by the true Dhamma. For those who understand that they are led by the Dhamma, how could there be jealousy? And so the monks, regularly when people are criticizing them with this verse, then they reply with this other verse. So what's the jealousy? If we are led by the Dhamma and people want to join us, then and so after the 1 week, then gradually people's opinion starts to change, and they say the disciples of the Buddha are led by the Dhamma, by the truth, and not by non-Dhamma, and then they stop complaining. Yeah, that was the greatest teaching success of the Buddha, happening during the first year after he started to teach. These people, like the 1,000 fire-worshipping ascetics and the several 10,000 people of Rājagaha, were the largest crowd of people on the entire planet who were able to realize the Dhamma after just listening to one discourse. And after that, there were still of many individual people realizing the Dhamma, and sometimes groups, let's say some 60 monks become arahants, something like that, but never such huge groups. Because the Buddha had reached those people, which were like large groups, who were extremely easy to teach. And then sort of this, it didn't continue forever like that, because some people were like less receptive or less easy to teach, and the Buddha knew that already when he's surveying the world, he sees people easy to teach and difficult to teach, and so he knew that obviously at the beginning there would be these people around, but then gradually also people who are less receptive and less easy to teach. Yeah, and so this was the dawn and sunrise of the dispensation of the Buddha, the dawn of a new era, the walk of the Buddha and the 1,000 arahants to Rājagaha, King Bibisara and the people of the city meeting them and realizing streamenty, and the 5 aspirations of the king being fulfilled, the entry of the Buddha and the 1,000 arahants into Rājagaha, then the offering of the bamboo grove, the Moggalāna, the first Buddhist monastery, and the arrival of the greatest disciples of the Buddha, Venerable Sāriputta and Venerable Moggalāna. The stories from the Mahā, from the Vinaya Pitaka, if anyone wants to know where you can find that. Yeah, ancient Rājagaha was one of probably the largest city at the time of the Buddha in India. Today it's called Rajgir. It's only a very insignificant place now, except for the significance in the life of the Buddha. So it's a pilgrimage site now. And yeah, so it's a place that you can go to visit if you're in India. Then you can see these places where these events in the life of the Buddha took place yourself, and like the bamboo grove, the Moggalāna, or Vajra's Peak, where the Buddha sometimes stayed. And also Nalanda is very close, the birthplace of Venerable Sāriputta. And the place was then, for about 1,000 years, the monastery and university of Nalanda was one of the centers of learning in the ancient world. Yeah, so several holy sites you can visit there around Rājagaha.